everybody. Welcome to Tropes to Infinity's Octoberween Pod People Spookcastular. Not sorry. I'm your host, Erik Block, and with me is my co-host, Gene Freeman. And we're opening this episode with Marilyn Manson's cover of Screamin' Jay Hawkins' I Put a Spell on You, because we're going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan, who not only used the song in TV spots for The Sixth Sense, but also shares a similar career arc as Manson, in that they started out with a lot of critical hype before turning into something of a joke, despite the fact that their careers both merit a second look. After Shyamalan's initial success with The Sixth Sense, say that 5 times fast, he seemed to hit on a style and proceed to just sledgehammer it into the ground, to the point where even films he only produced have his fingerprints all over them, making not very good movies, terrible by association, because by then everyone knew what to expect and we all rolled our eyes accordingly. Whether it was with The Village or Lady in the Water or The Happening, either we didn't go see those movies or we went and were disappointed all over again, because how long can he possibly keep being this bad on purpose? But this streak actually appears to have been broken with his latest movie, The Visit, sort of. Gene liked it a lot. I actually didn't like it much at all. The one thing you're supposed to like in order for a movie to work, the main characters, I didn't care for. Now, I bag on the rapping, lisping 13-year-old boy who dresses like he just stepped out of a TLC video pretty hard as being super annoying, but in my defense, would you watch a character like that do anything else in a movie but get murdered? From there, we go back through Shyamalan's filmography and try and relate it to horror as a genre. We explore the difference between what Gene and I want out of horror movies. I forget legendary makeup artist Tom Savini's name when telling a story about him, because I have a terrible memory and because no one showcases practical effects anymore, so why wouldn't his name slip my mind? We also talk about some other non-horror movies we've seen recently, just relating to the importance of having an interesting or unique cinematic experience. That part gets pretty not safe for work, so, earmuffs or whatever. Lastly, we tease our Halloween episode. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
I love you.
Today's episode is going to be about M. Night Shyamalan's newest film, The Visit, and M. Night Shyamalan in general. This will be an interesting one because we actually had different opinions on this. I really enjoyed The Visit. I thought it was one of the better horror movies I'd seen in quite a while. Certainly the best Shyamalan film since The Sixth Sense. They were very different in tone. I wouldn't compare the two, but I liked it a lot. And Erik did not. So I'll let you give your take on that.
Yeah, I didn't care for it. One of the main reasons why people like this movie is that they liked the kids in it. And that was the thing I just didn't like, particularly the little boy.
Yeah.
I didn't like the fact that he rapped through a lot of it. Like he was, I don't know. I'm going to come off like an asshole in this episode, probably, because I'm just talking about how much I didn't like this little kid. But my reasoning is that he was just fucking annoying as hell. Maybe I just have something against people with lisps, adults especially. But, yeah, I thought a bunch of things about this boy that was cast in this movie, or at least the character he was playing, were just really grating, and they didn't really do anything for the story itself. So I wasn't really sure why they made him do all these things at my brain. So,
well, how do you not like somebody with a lisp?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I guess it's the Cindy Brady thing.
Yeah. What about Murderface?
Yeah, well, that's more of a slobber than a lisp.
I believe that's called a lateral lisp.
Yeah.
I looked that up, so, Or Dusty Rhodes, baby.
Yeah, or Dusty Rhodes. Some people can really pull it off, and it's really charming.
Yeah.
This kid's not charming. I just thought it was really irritating. And there was no reason for it. Just like no reason for his garbage raps.
No, I mean, that's certainly fair. And I would say, that's really, it's going to make it or break it. If you like those kids, you'll like the movie. If you don't, you won't.
Yeah. And the sister was kind of pretentious. Maybe that was the point.
Yeah, I mean, it really does live and die on their performances. I mean, the grandparents were good, but you spend most of your time with the brother and sister. So, and it's true, you know, I don't like to read reviews as much as I can avoid before seeing a movie. But after seeing it, I've looked up some reviews, and that's generally what people say. They're like, oh, this was a good movie, and the kids were great. So that's really kind of what's selling it to people.
Yeah.
If you had asked me, I would not have said that. I actually thought it was kind of miraculous, really, that I didn't hate that boy. Because if you had told me before, like, oh yeah, there's this 13-year-old blonde lisping kid
who goes by the name of T Diamond Styles.
Yeah, and he raps, I've been like, yeah, sounds great. I'll see you guys there.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I actually thought it was funny. When he rapped, I thought it was funny, not like comedy rap, but it was, cute. He's a little kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just I kind of reacted to it in the way that obviously I was intended to.
Yeah.
And I guess you just didn't. So
yeah, I happened to not. That was actually, like, real talk, that was the only part I actually covered my face for.
Yeah.
I did this, kind of watched the movie through my fingers, is when he was rapping.
Yeah.
Like, God, this is embarrassing. But I saw it with like a predominantly black crowd.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
If that means anything.
That's, yeah, I didn't really get the impression that he was being presented as like a good rapper. Like, no, he was going to grow up to be on MTV or something.
Kid. Yeah, exactly. I was just like, this is terrible. Despite that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. it's not that they didn't get the joke. I just didn't appreciate that they were making the joke in the first place.
Yeah.
So there's that. And also, I was aware that the whole movie was supposed to be a satire of the genre.
Right.
Done by someone, obviously, who knows what he's doing or knows what he's talking about. I just think the execution could have been a little clearer, I guess.
Yeah. We'll get into Shyamalan's career as a whole a little bit more later on. But I will say that this is the first movie that he's done in quite a while that was not... it was a low-budget film, and I'm really not up on the terminology. I want to say independent, but I don't think it was. But it was done without like a lot of, studio notes and things like that. He was kind of on his own, and I think he stepped up.
Yeah.
I guess we can address it, a little bit. I think pretty much everybody liked The Sixth Sense. It was a huge hit, Academy Award nominee. I remember everybody enjoying that movie. I don't remember anyone criticizing it at the time. And there was a lot of hype for his next movie, which was Unbreakable. And it was kind of, I think the reaction to that was middling, mediocre. Personally, I enjoy it. And
so did I. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. And then after that, it was just bomb after bomb after bomb, which, my opinion of those individual movies is varied, but we'll get to that. I'm trying to draw an arc to his career that he's kind of basically failed as like a studio director, which artistically he has. I don't know if his movies still make money or not. I didn't research that, but
I haven't seen what the box office was or is currently, but I'm sure it did okay. If people like it this much.
That's true. And I mean, even like his movies that people don't like, I mean, people want to work with him. Like, I think Will Smith like sought him out for After Earth. And even if he didn't, I mean, Will Smith is a big star. I'm not really a fan of Will Smith movies usually, but he's certainly, an A-lister.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix was in The Village. Paul Giamatti. These are, good actors. But he just has not had a lot of critical success in some time. So I almost think that was sort of what he was trying to do here, is kind of go for a stripped down sort of old fashioned type horror movie. I remember him saying, I read that he, depending on the way he edited this movie, it could have come off a lot of different ways. It could have been straight comedy, suspense, whatever. And he kind of split the difference, horror comedy. I think it works on both levels. It made me laugh.
I will give that to him. There is a sort of Sam Raimi quality to it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's good for Sam Raimi.
Raimi. The other thing I was going to say about it was that it felt like a Stephen King story. And I get the impression that if Stephen King saw it, he would like it. But he's easy to please.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. He's sort of a sucker for haunted house stories and stuff like that. And like,
yeah,
he's easy to delight.
But the thing that I think is making me think of Stephen King is that it's a short story, by the way, more so than a novel. It's a very basic premise. There's not a lot of originality, but he just gives a lot of personal touches. It feels like a very personal movie. And I actually think that's true of Shyamalan's films in general, is they feel very much like the people in them could be real people. Not necessarily that all their decisions are realistic, but that they're fleshed out enough that I feel like I know them as a person, not necessarily as just a character in a script, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really any time in The Visit where I thought these people were entirely fake. Like I've known people like this.
Yeah.
I've known even some little kids like this that they're sort of realistically, in this case, annoying. But yeah, I didn't think of them as fake in any way.
If anything, they were too well adjusted. I mean, I don't know. Your dad walks out when you're how old and never met your grandparents. Your mom has an estranged relationship with her parents.
Yeah.
They'd be a little more dysfunctional, but whatever. It's a movie.
Yeah. Should we make this a spoiler cast or?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to.
I think so.
Just in general, when we talk about a movie, we're going to assume you've seen it.
Right. There you go. That's good. Yeah, that was the first question I had with this movie was like, do they even know what these people look like?
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't have any pictures. Their mother ran away when she was really young.
Right.
So she obviously doesn't have any pictures of her parents, and she certainly wouldn't have any of them now. So how do you prepare your kids to go meet their grandparents when they have no idea what they look like or really who they are?
Yeah, it's kind of out there. The premise and, I guess I wouldn't even call it a twist, but just the ending to this movie is that the grandparents are mental patients who have murdered the real grandparents and taken their place, which, again, it's like something out of a Stephen King story or like a Tales from the Crypt episode. Just a real...
Almost like a Goosebumps episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I enjoy that. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. If it's like refreshing or... Because it's not original, but maybe that's what I like. Maybe it's comfortable because it's something that's been associated with properties I enjoy in the past.
Yeah, there's a bit of nostalgia to it.
There are certain themes in movies that I just always enjoy. And mental patience is one of them. Not to disparage the legitimately mentally ill. I have people like that in my family, but as a horror movie, just a crazy axe murderer breaking out of an asylum. I mean, that's great. It's kind of like the inbred hillbilly cannibals. It's a classic.
Yeah, how to work slaughterhouse workers living at home. Yeah, I did enjoy that part of it. I enjoyed the twist.
Yeah,
that was good. I thought it was clever, but I did laugh when it was revealed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that
reaction.
Was inappropriate. I mean, it was certainly very firmly horror comedy. I don't know if it skewed one way or the other. It seemed to thread the needle pretty evenly between them, in my estimation.
Yeah.
Like one scene I thought was particularly skilled. There's the old man wears diapers because he's incontinent, and there's a scene where he shoves a shitty diaper into the boy's face, which...
That was funny.
It's funny, and at the same time, it's like, it's really gross. I mean, like, some old man shit in your face? Come on.
Yeah, especially if you're a germaphobe, as this kid is.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing imaginable. Like, when you see it happen, you're just like, oh! It has this visceral response that makes me think of, like, the woman's eye being slowly pulled into the splinter in Zombie 2.
Yeah.
Just something like that, where it's just like, oh, just so cringeworthy, but it's not like over the top violent or gory like that was.
It's
real.
Like
I'm gonna think outside the box. I'm gonna get that reaction out of you, but I'm gonna do it in a way that you've never seen, and in a way that's not cheap, as far as just like cutting somebody's eye open or something like that.
Yeah,
or cutting a guy's dick off,
Yeah.
like in fucking Hostel.
Ugh. Yeah.
And I thought that was clever. And it was, see, because this is probably unique to me because I actually liked those kids. So I felt bad for him being in that situation. It was not only a visceral cringe, but I was like, is he gonna be all right? Quite honestly, I wasn't articulating this, but that's like the way you feel.
Yeah.
And then over the credits, he raps about it and he makes a joke. He talks about washing his face. So then you're like, oh, okay, he was okay. So it was it all kind of tied together that way. And
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Yeah. One thought I had was like, are these kids like psychologically invincible?
Yeah.
Or just nothing seems to affect them? The girl won't even put the camera down for her own attempted murder.
Yeah.
As the woman's like strangling her, trying
I
to
thought
claw her eyes out.
I thought that was good. The scene earlier, there was a couple of scenes earlier in the movie where they talked about their relationship with their father, and they established their vulnerability, which was good because number one, they were a little too well adjusted, as I mentioned a few moments ago, and two, it sort of justifies her, obsession with videoing things, which is a theme that I've seen in a couple other films, probably most skillfully in Benny's Video, which is a Mikhail Haneke film. Have you ever seen that?
I didn't see that one.
It's a good one. And then Romero's Diary of the Dead, they had a similar thing where it's sort of a coping mechanism to just film everything. So
yeah, like trying to think of another instance where that has been used as a coping mechanism. It's the guy, he was in Dawn of the Dead. He went on to do like a bunch of makeup effects. Actually, he did the makeup effects for Dawn of the Dead, the original.
Oh man, I'm blanking.
Well, I'm sure his name will come at the end of this explanation, but he was a cameraman in Vietnam. He just took pictures of, whatever everyone was doing, what his unit was doing. And he would use the camera as a coping mechanism for all the gore that was around him.
Yeah.
Because through the lens, it was an effect. There wasn't actually an arm laying on the ground. That guy wasn't actually exploded in half.
Right.
So, and also he would sort of use that experience to sort of learn about bone and placement and, well, how would I do this if I was going to make this an effect,
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And now that we discuss it, also kind of reminds me of, I always screwed the name of the movie up. It's Man Bites Dog, right? The French film about the serial killer. I always want to say Dog Bites Man, but yeah, that one as well. Kind of, that was a little bit different, but there's a little similarity to that as well.
Yeah.
Just about the distancing that filming something produces.
Yeah. I have that actually.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So yeah, maybe my opinion about this movie will soften over time. I'll kind of come to appreciate it a little more. But yeah, as it stands, I just didn't care for it. So
yeah, I mean, as I said, it's if you don't like the kids, you're not going to like the movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when Dark Knight Rises came out. That's what I said. Like, if you just don't like that Bane voice, then you're just not going to like the movie.
Yeah, I liked it immediately. So
yeah,
that was a different kind of choice.
Right. All right. So yeah, The Visit, return to form, kind of a stripped down effort from Shyamalan, and it has done pretty well. So that's good. I hope we get more of that from him, because we'll expand the conversation a little bit now. We'll talk about Shyamalan's career in general. And it's a common criticism that his films are better directed than they are written. He's a writer-director, and I don't really think he gets a lot of criticism as a director. I think he's pretty established that he can do that. He can create mood very well. He can compose shots very well.
Yeah. I will say he's great at the rhythm of scenes. He's great at pacing.
Yeah.
So I won't take that away from him.
Yeah, no, it's just the writing that people have a problem with. And okay, so the twists, number one, people got tired of that.
Did they?
Yeah. It got to the point where it was like, oh, another Shyamalan movie. There's going to be a twist ending.
Right.
And it didn't sit well. And here's a good time to mention the Village, which I actually like, but I think it has a caveat that The Village must be watched with advanced knowledge of the twist, or it's just going to piss you off because it's incongruous with the tone of the movie And it seems to be, a twist for its own sake, sort of exploitative. But I think if he had established up front, and the twist, if you don't know, is just that this is set in a village which is supposed to be a couple hundred years ago, and it's actually a cult in modern times. But I think if you know that the whole time, it becomes more interesting to see it's just about some cult rather than about a village a long time ago and a monster.
Yeah.
But a movie about a religious cult and just it's basically, I guess it's the elders are pretending to be monsters to keep them from discovering, the real world. And I think that's interesting. So, and, it is his fault that he structured it that way. So whatever, but I still think it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
The Sixth Sense, I know everybody claimed that twist was easy to spot, and in retrospect it was. I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't guess that the first time I saw it.
Well, people like to do the whole Monday morning quarterback thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I saw that coming. Or he should have done it this way or whatever.
No, I mean, he telegraphed the shit out of it, but I don't necessarily think that gives it away, because it's like you're not expecting a twist. Later on you were.
Yeah.
But it was not Shyamalan's first film, but it was his first, I think it was his first American movie, certainly his first mainstream movie, and people went into it not knowing what to expect. Once he started doing the same thing over and over, people got tired of that, and I think it might have unfairly biased people against him. And, again, I don't want to let him off the hook. He should have quit doing it. He should have structured his movies a different way.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine to be known for a thing, but when that thing is attached to how your movies end,
yeah,
maybe just do it the one time or twice. If you can do it a completely different way within that format, you can get away with it. But yeah, people are going to get sick of it.
And he did. He tried his hand at some other stuff. He did the Last Airbender, which was the movie based on the manga and anime Avatar. They couldn't call it Avatar because of James Cameron's Avatar, but that's what it was about. And I didn't see it, but it's supposed to be just an abortion, just one of the worst things ever. But there you go, no twist.
Yeah,
it's not his property.
Yeah.
After Earth, I also did not see, but I know what happens in it. I researched it on YouTube last night, but it doesn't really have a twist ending either. It's just kind of a by all accounts dull sci-fi action movie. But other than that, Unbreakable definitely had a twist, and actually that's an interesting point, because I did guess the ending of Unbreakable, and I guessed it before the movie started. I guessed the ending of Unbreakable based on the opening title card, which was something about comic books, because I happen to be a comics fan. So when they flashed that, I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with comic books? Okay, so he must be this character, therefore Sam Jackson is the nemesis. If he's unbreakable, and then he talks about his condition,
and his
Mr. Glass,
Mr.
and I'm
Glass.
like, okay, yes, I understand.
Yeah.
So that was pretty easy to get. I didn't mind because, and maybe that is a better way to look at it. In that, okay, The Sixth Sense, he telegraphed the hell out of that twist. It was there for the taking. In Unbreakable, he did as well. I mean, maybe you're not supposed to be surprised. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. The Happening as well. We saw that in the theater.
Yeah. Why did we do that?
For laughs.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, maybe it's supposed to be a comedy. I mean, it was pretty funny.
It was funny to watch Mark Wahlberg look confused.
Yeah.
At someone lying down in front of a lawnmower or whatever, or construction workers throwing themselves off of buildings with their hands in their pockets. It was funny.
Yeah, and then they parodied it pretty brilliantly on South Park, where they were running away from the global warming. Or actually, no, that was first. South Park was parodying 2012.
Yeah.
And then when The Happening came out, it was like, oh, it's like that South Park. But maybe it's, and it is, again, not to overuse the word, but satirical of 1950s sort of disaster movies. If it was supposed to be funny, then mission accomplished. Maybe that's the problem here, is that Shyamalan has become something of a punchline. People don't really like him. Maybe that's going to change because The Visit has been pretty well received. But I don't really know what he says about his career. I mean, does he defend himself? If he does, how? It probably would have been something to research before we started talking about it. But the point is, we're talking about Shyamalan's films from a fan's perspective. And I'm just saying, I don't know, maybe there's an alternative way to look at these movies besides just say, here's a hack that sucks and he does the same movie over and over again. No, maybe there's another way.
Yeah, we'll find it at some point.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So yeah, I just pulled up Shyamalan's filmography here. After Unbreakable was Signs.
Signs was bad. I will not defend Signs.
Yeah, but I'm not going to attempt to defend Signs either. I will say I liked Joaquin Phoenix, but I like him in everything he does anyway because he's great. Yeah. But that was a bad movie that he was in.
If you want to call that a twist, which again, maybe people just started calling them twists because that's somehow became associated with Shyamalan's name. But maybe it's not a twist so much as just an ending. But whatever it was, stupidest thing I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah. Next, The Village, which we've just talked about. Lady in the Water.
Yeah, I never saw that one until just recently. I watched it in preparation of this discussion. It is not very good. Another common criticism of Shyamalan is that he's very self-serious and sort of pretentious, which I think may be a misconception. If not, he's certainly going in another direction with The Visit because it was not really very serious at all. But Lady in the Water was probably the nadir of that. It's a very self-important movie, and Shyamalan casts himself as, I don't know, like the author of reality or some fucking thing. It's just... I mean, it's like when Stephen King wrote himself into The Dark Tower. You roll your eyes.
Yeah. A handsome man enters.
Yeah, but you're not Stephen King. You're M. Night Shyamalan, okay? You have to earn the ability to do that, and even then, I'm not going to like it. I'll just tolerate it.
Yeah.
And Lady in the Water was also based on a bedtime story that he told his children. So, okay, great. Here's a Hollywood career. Hey, I'm going to, film stories that I make up for my kids. And by the way, I'm God in this story. So it was a misfire, but it's certainly, it's aesthetically pleasing to watch.
Well, Bryce Dallas Howard is aesthetically pleasing to watch.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's a stretch. I mean, not about Bryce Dallas Howard. I mean, it's a stretch if you're trying to find something positive to say. It's like...
Right.
That line in Ed Wood is like, oh, the soldiers' costumes are very authentic. Now that's positive.
Exactly. All right. Well, after Lady in the Water was The Happening, which we already laughed at. Last Airbender, After Earth, a TV series called Wayward Pines. He directed one episode.
Yeah, the pilot. I never saw that.
Yeah. The Visit, which, just go back to a few minutes ago if you're listening to this podcast. And a couple of announced projects that aren't out yet. One called Labor of
We can
Love.
also recall as well that he produced the movie Devil, and
that I can talk about. Have you seen that movie?
I want to say yes, but I honestly don't remember it. I've seen at least part of it, but
okay. Being unsure that if you've seen that or not, what do you think that movie is about, and what do you think happens in it?
Just based on the title?
Yeah.
Well, it's cheating because I know there's an elevator in it.
Yeah.
But I've seen at least part of it. So there's some people in an elevator, and one of them is Darkness from Legend.
Yes. One of them is Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you think they resolve that? Any answer you give will probably be the right answer because it's fucking bad.
I was going to say I know Shyamalan went to Catholic school, so I'm going to guess some Catholic superstition.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There is a security guard in it that's watching on a monitor, and he's very, very Catholic.
Yeah.
So that plays into it. And yeah, essentially people just get picked off one by one until I think it's like the old lady in it, the oldest lady in there is the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Not to go off on a rant here, but as an aside, I am tired, number one, of the devil as a villain in a film. And I'm tired of Catholicism being the antidote to the devil. It's just stupid. And if I never see that in a movie again, it'll be too soon. It worked exactly once, and the movie was called The Exorcist. I'm exaggerating. There's other movies that are okay, like The Omen and various other things. But the point is, back then, maybe the devil was scary because people believed the devil was like a real, I don't know if he's a guy or whatever, but a real being. And people had a lot more respect for the church than they do now. So now it seems like something that's...
It's theater.
The analogy I'm going to make is a little too extreme, but it's like when you watch Birth of a Nation and the KKK are the heroes. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Catholicism. That's what saves the day.
Yeah.
So
there's
that was actually why I did not like the recent movie from a year or so ago, The Conjuring, which everybody praised and is another very simplistic throwback, haunting demon possession type movie, which, on paper seems like I should be all about it, but it didn't really do it for me. And that was why. Too much fucking Catholicism.
Yeah. Personally, I'm just related to this. I'm tired of, witch movies. Basically, I'm tired of sort of accusatory, like you're the devil or you're a witch because I believe in God and he says so because of these rules.
Yeah.
I think it's really kind of childish. I think it's ridiculous. Having said that, I am excited for The Witch come out, which doesn't actually look like it's a supernatural movie. It looks like it's mostly just based on paranoia.
Right.
That something is out there and it's taken our child. So
yeah, I mean, there's certainly room to do it properly. And I don't know, I like the devil as a fictional character, but I don't know. It's just played out at this point. And people are way, way less religious than they used to be.
Yeah.
And getting less religious all the time.
Yeah. And also, having the devil as your villain, it assumes your religion is the right one.
Yeah.
So that really irks me.
Yeah. Like, there was a line similar to that in The Conjuring where the guy was like, "Oh, are your kids baptized?" He's like, "Yeah, we don't really subscribe to that." He's like, "Well, you better start." It's like, well, you better hope it ain't the fucking Hindu devil or something. Yeah.
Well, if it was like Kali or something, that would be more exciting.
Yeah, you're just making God madder and madder. I mean, and if you played it like kind of like the Stephen King's It way, where it's like it works because you believe in it, like I'm fine with that. I accept that as a hand wave, but they don't even do that.
Yeah,
it's just Catholic equals devil killer, and that's just how they treat it.
Yeah, a lot of that is because they're the only ones that have exorcisms, right? It's a Catholic institution.
Yeah.
The Exorcist.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to do a movie about possession, then sure, make it Catholic. Because and Muslims also believe in that, but we're probably not going to see any heroic Muslims in America anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny I keep bringing up Stephen King, but it just reminds me again, great scene in Salem's Lot, the book. Don't remember the movie where it holds up the cross and the vampire just like snaps it in two.
Right.
Just, come priest and learn of a true religion.
Yeah.
It's a good line. I'll give Interview with the Vampire credit for that as well, as he just like laughs off all the Catholic shit. The only way to harm a vampire is the sun, or you can completely consume them with fire. None of the crosses and holy water matter because of course, why would they?
I'm trying to think of a segue from this.
What, back to Shyamalan?
Oh, back to Shyamalan, or just to something else about horror in general.
I will say it is interesting that Shyamalan, I mean, he's Indian American. He was born in India, but I don't think he spent any sort of time there. But he was raised Hindu. He went to Catholic school, but his family was Hindu. So perhaps gives him a different perspective on that, particularly related to the Devil movie, although he only produced that, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
But that whole thing sort of smacked of Shyamalan, though. Smacked of his presence. Because, I mean, I hesitate to call it a twist, but it's a very high concept movie.
Yeah.
You know, there's an elevator trapped midway up the shaft, and one of the people in it is the devil.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you just, backed a movie into a concept.
Yeah, I mean, that's acceptable as like maybe an episode of an anthology TV series. But
yeah, that I would watch. Yeah. A half hour of that would be really cool.
Sure.
2 hours of that is stupid.
Yeah.
So it's just so hard to stretch out. And when you lay like the Catholic stuff on top of it, it's really kind of, I am right. It's very like didactic and.
Yeah, I would honestly love to see some, different religions featured in a movie. I'm not a religious man myself, but just for variety. I know that most people in the world are religious, so I don't object to seeing any religious content, but at least go for a different faith, have it work. Maybe I can think of one instance of that I actually kind of liked. It was in, of all things, The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, where the guy kept holding up all his different religious symbols. And the one that ended up working was the Star of David, which was incongruous because that symbol wasn't used until much later. And they're actually not even sure that the Jews were ever enslaved in Egypt as described in the Bible. But, from a narrative perspective, I'm glad they went for something different, something unusual.
Yeah, they're thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to kind of tie this into a larger narrative, or maybe it's just a justification for why I didn't like The Visit. I'm not sure if you hold this opinion yourself, but I always thought horror is a genre with a memory, a narrative that kind of plays through its entire history.
Yeah.
It's this accumulated body of knowledge.
Right.
And I mean, I know there's plenty of instances throughout its history where that's ignored. You have to get people in and out of rooms for spurious reasons. You have to get people, sometimes people have to run upstairs so the monster can chase them.
Yeah.
Even though obviously we've seen from thousands of movies that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run out of the house or whatever, but they never do. Despite that, my brain processes horror as, well, but we've already had all these other movies, so why didn't you do this other thing?
Yeah.
It's like you, particularly like post Scream,
right,
where we're sort of looking back on all this like, well, obviously these are the things you're supposed to do. These are the things you're supposed to not do. And when I see a movie since then that sort of flies in the face of those rules and just does all the dumb things that people still complain about to this day. It's like, why do you run upstairs? Why do you hide in the closet? Why do you, trap yourself in a certain part of the house? Why do you open the door on that thing? It's annoying to me that still happens because of that body of knowledge that's been accumulated.
Yeah.
But maybe, am I being unfair?
No, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree. I see where you're coming from. Now, I appreciate it when that body of knowledge is addressed, but I don't think it has to be.
Right.
I can see it going either way. Now, you mentioned Scream, which is a very smart movie, and there's a few horror movies that are just really, really fucking clever. Scream, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, The Cabin in the Woods. Movies like this, they're just, masters at what you're describing. But on the other hand, like, I don't mind if a movie exists within its own universe. Like, I don't necessarily think that characters in movies have seen other movies. Because, I mean, it's always the question. It's like, are these people living in the same reality that we live in, or...
See, I always assume that they are.
Right.
And maybe I shouldn't do that.
Right. I think sometimes they are. I think sometimes they're not. And, by the same token, it's like, oh, okay, so they're living in a world where they've seen these movies, but to them it's still the real world. Like, for example, if I'm at home alone and I hear a weird noise outside, I'll open the door and go out and fucking see what it is because I'm not in a movie.
Right.
So are you behaving like you want a character in a movie to react, or are you behaving like a real person would react?
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
I guess it depends on the noise.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just like one of the things about the movie is that their grandmother, well, both of them, but their grandmother especially starts acting more and more erratic after 9:00.
Right.
Like they're told, don't open your bedroom door after 9:00. Just stay in the room. And they go,
right.
Okay. And they hear these weird fucking noises because she's running around the house being a weirdo in various states of undress, like scratching at the walls and running around on all fours. And
Sundowning. That was the original title of the film.
Yeah. Which actually is a better title.
Yeah.
It's more eerie.
Yeah, it was like I would have preferred Texas Chainsaw Massacre if it was named Head Cheese. They should always just go with the first title.
Yeah. But yeah, it's referred to in the movie, sort of explained away as something called sundowning, which is a real thing.
Yeah.
Actually. Just people sort of losing their minds, essentially. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be too hard on the kids in this film is, I mean, I already have been, but I sort of thought because they're sort of young millennials that they would know or have a certain sort of knowledge of not to open the door on things like that.
Yeah.
But it would be a boring movie if they didn't do that. So it wouldn't be a found footage type movie with like jump scares and, you know, running away from your crazy fucking grandmother who's running around on all fours.
I mean, you can sort of place, you can place a film in a time and a time and place by, references like The Visit. I'm trying to think if they mentioned any other movies. I know they mentioned Tyler, the Creator at one point, a real person who is current. So, and the Skype logo is featured prominently when they're using Skype and things like that. So it's obviously modern, but
that's why I was saying it exists in a universe where there are no horror movies.
Yeah, but maybe that's the way he tried to present it. I mean, it is certainly a throwback. It feels very 70s.
Yeah.
So they had to get rid of the cell phone, which, sort of changed the way people react.
Yeah. But they always do the same thing, like, oh, I don't get any service here.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing as not having one.
Right.
Like, like you're back in the 70s.
Yeah, you got to get rid of it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, come to think of it, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you would do in that situation. Like if you were those kids in that house, because it's like, well, obviously something's wrong. If she does all this crazy shit, why isn't she tied down? And the man is, senile. He forgets where he is half the time. It's like, well, they obviously shouldn't be living alone. They supposedly volunteer at the hospital. And I guess maybe they're there for a week. They don't want to make trouble, but if you kind of stop and put two and two together, you're like, there's obviously a problem here. But I don't know. They're kids. Kids are stupid.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling my view on it will probably adjust over time, become more forgiving.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that, it's just a character trait of me in general that I'm not difficult to please with movies. It's partially that and partially just that I am pretty good at knowing whether I'm going to like something or not. So I just don't see a lot of stuff that I know I won't like.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at judging trailers.
Yeah.
That way, where it's like, yeah, this is going to be good. I'll go see that. And I'm usually right most of the time. I have been surprised, like genuinely, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I am.
It did not happen with this movie.
I'm very rarely wrong. I think probably twice I've gone to a movie in a theater and did not like it, which is a pretty good record.
Yeah.
The first time was the movie Cold Creek Manor with Dennis Quaid and Stephen Dorff. Just wasn't that good. And
because Stephen Dorff, probably.
Yeah, but I don't know. And you're right. He's not that good. But I always like Stephen Dorff. Every time I say, oh, Stephen Dorff. And I'm like, why? It's the Blade, probably.
Yeah. And
then the second time was the Tobey Maguire, Jake Gyllenhaal movie Brothers, which, I'll admit I was swayed by Roger Ebert's rave review. The trailer didn't look that good, but when he wrote about it, I was like, man, this movie sounds awesome. And then I went and saw it, and I'm like, I guess Raj saw something that I didn't see because it wasn't really that good.
Yeah, he's wrong. He was wrong some of the time.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I can't think of a time that I have gone to a movie and then just didn't like it.
Yeah. There have been plenty of times where we've been pleasantly surprised at how much we liked something.
Oh, yeah.
Hot Rod stands out.
Hot Rod is, we didn't even want to see that. It was whatever we were going to see was like sold out or something.
Yeah.
But it was, you can tell we still reference it to this day. It's like the hardest I've ever laughed at anything.
Yeah, no joke, I was literally rolling in the aisles laughing.
Yeah.
I was on my hands and knees holding my sides because I couldn't take air in to laugh anymore.
Yeah.
That was about halfway through the movie.
And I've seen it a few times since then. I mean, it's still really funny, but it's just nothing compares to that first time.
Yeah.
And maybe because it was so unexpected.
I think it's a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I think we're also the only people in that theater, or almost the only people.
Close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just recently watched that movie Wetlands as well. Also a surprise because it's supposed to be, gross. This is a German film about a teenage girl who is into breaking social taboos, particularly sexual and hygienic ones. And I went into it because, I don't know, I kind of like gross stuff. But Anyway, no, not titillated by the disgusting content, because I'm probably just too jaded at this point. I watch extreme cinema all the time. Point is, the movie was actually really sweet and emotionally honest and genuine. I'm like, oh, what a nice movie. That makes me feel good. And it was life affirming. And it's like, that's not what I expected when I read this is a movie about basically a slut who rubs her vagina on dirty toilet seats. I mean, that's the way the movie's described, but you watch it and it's like,
right on.
that's not what you would expect. But I mean, that's good. It's like, how can you sell something like that that's not like anything you've ever seen before? And it's just
Sell it just that way. This is unlike anything you've ever seen before.
Yeah, just get you in the door.
Yeah.
And there you go.
That sounds intriguing to me.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Your mileage may vary about how much you can stomach, because it goes pretty hardcore as far as just the physically repellent and gross content. But
I think short of like shit eating.
Yeah, no, there's nothing like that.
Okay. Like I remember when I was at band practice once, and it was when Two Girls, One Cup was out. We all watched it after practice, and everyone else was getting grossed out except for Justin and I. My friend Justin, who was like, we were just like, where's the gross parts?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. When does it get really bad?
Could you guys please leave? I'd like to jerk off.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yeah, it's your mileage may vary. There is a lot of like menstrual blood and that kind of thing. Sometimes guys are freaked out by that, but that's their problem.
I got my Red Wings.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other movies like that.
The opening scene to that, which was really great, the opening credits, is she establishes that what the movie is really about, it's about her coping with her parents' divorce and some other childhood traumas. But when she was young, her mother tells her like she has to be paranoid about toilet seats because it'll make her pussy sick. This is the way that she describes it in the movie. So excuse my language, but she's like, and I thought
sick.
And I thought that was bullshit. So she tries to find the dirtiest public toilet seats and then just rubs her pussy all along the dirty toilet seat. That's like her thing. And in the beginning, it shows her going into this, filthy bathroom, kind of reminiscent of the one from Trainspotting. And it like zooms in on this filthy used condom sitting on a toilet seat. But it goes like, and there's like just one pube sticking off it.
Right.
But it zooms in so far, it goes into like like a microscopic thing, and it's like a jungle with these crazy crab monsters and wacky shit like that. It was just really clever. And there's a bunch of Peaches songs on the soundtrack. Always like Peaches. So.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, I would recommend that to anyone. With the caveat that you'll see shit and period blood and crabs and various other gross stuff. No shit eating, but there is some shit in the movie.
Yeah. Even just as a cinematic experience, I think it's important to find movies like that.
Yeah.
To see movies like that, because you don't see that kind of stuff. Certainly Hollywood's not going to show you that kind of stuff. They'll make jokes about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no end to like dick and fart jokes and like shit jokes, coming out of Hollywood comedies. But
yeah, to take that and actually do something, again, life affirming and interesting and creative. I mean, my hat's off to you.
Yeah.
I think it's... And we're still just kind of getting a feel for how our podcast goes. So again, if you're listening to this, thanks for getting on the ground floor. We had to scrap a couple episodes, so we're still getting the hang of it. But I think it can be a good feature that we just discuss stuff that we've seen recently. The mainstream stuff, certainly, but a movie like Wetlands that nobody's going to hear about. I think it's good to throw that kind of thing in there. I always appreciate that when I listen to podcasts.
Yeah. Another
recent one that we both saw was the Ukrainian film The Tribe. Unlike anything I've ever seen before.
That was really incredible.
Yeah.
It's, if you've never heard of it, I actually wrote a review of it on my movie blog, The Long Emergency at Blogger. So if you want to go read that, you can do that, or you can just listen to what I'm about to tell you. It's about these students at a boarding school for the deaf in Ukraine. And everyone is deaf in this movie, which means there's no dialogue. There's no subtitles for this Ukrainian sign. You're just watching this reality happen, and you're given essentially no help. It's a real kind of slice of life, very different from what you would see elsewhere, and it was really incredible.
Yeah. And again, it's somewhat similar to like a Larry Clark movie, but it's just unlike anything you've ever seen before. And, it's simple to explain why. It's an untranslated movie set at a school for the deaf, so there's no dialogue.
Which, I mean, it sounds pretentious, maybe, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you watch a ton of movies, you just get bored and you're just like, I need something different once in a while, and this is fucking different.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell basically what's happening. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
I would like to see, a cut that has subtitles just for curiosity's sake, but
Yeah.
and I'd got to say, like, if you can speak Ukrainian Sign Language, you'd be like, yes, finally. Thank you.
Yeah. Finally a movie for me. Finally I'm represented on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the movie itself is violent. It's, there's a lot of murder, there's a lot of sex. It's not gratuitous, really. It's all for a purpose, but you're sort of watching all these fucked up things happen to these kids, sometimes against each other. And I hope it wins something. I hope it's nominated for something this year. If it's not, it's going to be a real surprise.
Yeah, this was the first Ukrainian movie I've ever seen, but I've been a fan for several years of Soviet films, which I know if you're actually from Ukraine, that might offend you, but I'm just saying it's, a similar part of the world. It's kind of like when you say like, oh yeah, I love Japanese culture and I love Korean culture too. Like a Japanese or a Korean person would be pissed off if you said that, but I think you sort of understand what I'm getting at.
Right.
So anyway, we've digressed a lot from M. Night Shyamalan, but I'll be very interested to see what's next. He'd have to be stupid if he doesn't, go for something that's not that different from this, because he's been failing for a long time and now he finally has some success. So
Yeah.
you just got to stick with it, man.
Yeah. I wonder if he has like a checklist of things that didn't work,
Yeah.
and he kind of is going to start tailoring his movies from now on. It's like, oh, this is the stuff that I'm actually good at, and this is the stuff that people don't like. Maybe
Yeah,
should
I
just
think
do
the
this
fact
stuff.
that he did this, kind of outside the studio environment, number one, it would be validating. And number two, it should convince him that, yes, he should stick to what he can do. He also wrote Stuart Little, so he can do more of that.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, yeah, hopefully more of the same. I have heard him say that it's a misconception that his movies have twists and that he only...
What?
Yeah. He says, they were like, what's the biggest misconception about you? He's like, that my movies have twists and that they're all scary. And he describes it as, my movies are emotional and they're spiritual. Okay. Right. So I don't understand the distinction. The emotional versus twist thing, I sort of get, because it's kind of like what I was saying earlier, that his characters, they feel like real people. They feel sort of lived in. Like you get to see some fairly intimate things with them. Like I always remember Haley Joel Osment getting up and like taking a piss in the middle of the night in his underwear in The Sixth Sense, because it seemed like invasive, but at the same time to see him do that, because I'm like, that's, when you're the most vulnerable, pissing in the middle of the night. So I'm like, why would they show him doing that? But then it's like, well, it's sort of making you feel like you're at home with him in a way. And I've just noticed that he can sort of add that sort of emotional context to his films. And maybe that's what he means. Maybe it's like, well, it's not necessarily a twist. I'm trying to get you to, sort of relate to the way these characters feel. So it's like, I'm not necessarily trying to surprise you, the audience, trying to surprise the characters in the film. And I'm just structuring it this way so you identify with them. I don't know. I'm speculating, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'm leading you down this path
Yeah.
to set up an emotional bond before I just take a hard right turn.
Right. Like for The Village, he's like, he wants you to identify with the villagers. So when, she discovers the truth at the end, that you feel like that. But whereas I say, no, it would be more interesting, from an outsider's perspective. But either way,
Yeah.
the spiritual thing, I don't know. That can mean anything, really.
Right. I don't know. As far as The Village, we honestly don't have enough movies about cults.
Yeah.
We should get more of those going.
Yeah. Marcy May, Marlene was
which
a
I
really
still haven't
good one.
seen.
Yeah, you got to check that out, man.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
Okay.
That's one of the better movies to come out in the past several years.
So
I'm trying to think of any other examples.
not a lot.
Yeah, no. Helter Skelter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, as far as scary stuff, like genuinely scary stuff, not just like, oh, the visit was effective. What it did. I can't even really think of anything that's gotten to me in years, probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like scary movies, I think everybody likes to be scared in like a thrill rides kind of way, where it's like you jump and you scream and you laugh and it's a good time. But there's the other kind of fear where it just like makes you feel sad or just existential dread, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is a different kind of movie.
Yeah, maybe that's that's the thing I'm looking for is like the dread.
Yeah.
Just unsettling.
Yeah.
Which I don't even really get from horror directors, unless you count like Mikhail Haneke as a horror director.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I don't really go to horror movies looking for that. Like, I can be very deeply unsettled by films like the Soviet film Come and See, which was about Nazis. For example, which like disturbed me to my core. And it's a good thing, you know. The Nazis were real. Sometimes you need to be disturbed to your core. I don't necessarily think it's fun to be psychologically disturbed like that, but it can certainly be rewarding. But I think horror movies in general should be fun. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's two schools of it.
Yeah.
I certainly appreciate the other side of it that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, yeah, this is so awesome. Like Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
I fucking love Cabin in the Woods. But like, that's a self-referencing, obviously, horror movie, which, I mean, that's great. But as far as just a straight up scary movie that's supposed to do, in my mind, do a job,
Yeah.
I like the other version.
Maybe it's just me. And, you know, I'm not saying this is good or bad, but I don't really get scared by horror movies, like, ever. I don't really go to them looking for that.
Yeah.
I have been in the past. There's been a couple horror movies that just scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
The Shining was one.
Really?
I've seen it dozens and dozens of times, and it's a favorite movie, and it certainly doesn't scare me at all now. But the first time I saw it, it really creeped me the hell out.
Yeah. Maybe I should be clear. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not going to get scared by a movie.
Yeah.
That's not, I'm almost 33 years old. Like, that's not going to happen. But like, if it can induce a sense of dread,
Yeah.
or just be unsettling, I think, yeah, that was pretty cool. Which The Shining definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Shining and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, again, was another one that affected me like that the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people got that from the original Nightmare on Elm Street. My problem with that was I saw the sequels first, so Freddy was the funny guy.
Yeah. Welcome to Prime Time, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing. No, I always like those movies.
Oh, yeah, they're great. Mostly.
Yeah. 2 is not good.
Yeah, 2 was really, really gay. And, like, not that there's anything wrong with being gay.
No, of course not.
And not that there's anything wrong with making a gay movie. But I don't think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah. It was just they kept falling kind of ass backwards.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Into these sort of scenarios where it's like, okay, this is super homo, dude. Like, it's, I mean, the movie is what it is. I think they tried their best to make a good movie, but it just turned out in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, if they were like trying to sort of make you uncomfortable because it was gay, I mean, I could sort of understand the rationale behind that. Especially back then, people got weirded out by stuff that was gay, but now it's just seems odd.
It seems like a relic.
It's, and you know, we've discussed this before, not on the podcast, I don't think, but you know, by today's standards, the 80s were extremely homophobic, and a lot of that stuff, when you watch it today, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. No,
Whoa, that is not okay.
Yeah. No, we've talked about it
Yeah.
on the podcast. We talked about like Porky's and it being sort of racist and homophobic.
Oh, yeah. I certainly remember the racism. The homophobia I don't really remember in Porky's, but
maybe not that film in general, but just 80s movies.
yeah. I mean, what's the movie where, Yeah, Sean Penn called people fags in Fast Times, and
Yeah. No way. Those dudes are fags.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That somebody, I'm trying to. There's like one scene that's just like on the tip of my brain. I think it was like Teen Wolf or somebody where Styles was like, "Are you a fag? Don't tell me you're a fag," or it's just something like that.
That sounds right.
I can't even grasp it because it was so common. People used to just talk like that all the
Right.
time.
You don't know which of the 5
Yeah.
dozen movies it probably was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we moved on. You live and learn.
Yeah, I don't know, it kind of bums me out in a way. It's like, are people not going to be able to watch those movies in the future? Like, if stuff's like really racist from like the 40s or something, you can't really watch it today. It kind of ruins it.
Yeah.
And it's just because I grew up in that era and I like so much of that stuff. I'm like, well, I hope it doesn't get ruined, but well, that's the times, I guess.
You'll just get Birth of a Nation.
Yeah. I guess we can wrap it up. We were kind of all over the place on this one.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't know. Are we comfortable doing teasers? Because we already know what we're going to do next time.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. So between now and next episode, we're going to see the Guillermo del Toro movie Crimson Peak. We'll talk about that. Talk about Guillermo del Toro. Continue in the spooky Halloween tone that we sort of were doing here, but a little broader. But keep it in season. So that's next time.
See you then.
Oh, I like the devil. 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 I like the devil. Oh, I like the devil. 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 I like the devil.